That's me.
We did, but the getting back to Albany was a real problem. Before we, yeah, we're gonna try. Where'd you go? South Carolina. We.
Jack, where do you?
Passes.
I don't know.
Got our boarding passes on a Monday, we Tuesday, and we were notified 3 hours prior to departure. It was canceled.
Oh.
But we couldn't get out until 4 days. So that would mean
Right, they can always shoot you
additional
the file.
hotel accommodation.
If it's on the computer, if it's been filed, so you rented it.
I don't know.
Nope,
It's
I flew to
keeping it off.
Detroit, son of his family flew to Syracuse. my wife
If,
flew-
if you logged in as the meeting leader, it should be recording to you. But regardless, it's being captured.
Yeah. Had somebody watch.
Yeah.
We're ready to go.
I figured out.
I know.
Getting the IT master.
We're working on that.
Wait a second.
Hey,
It says something. The connection has an unexpected error.
what is the name of the Oh, man. We only have one.
It's the old unexpected error alarm.
Hey, grab the next
But there's several.
Yeah, I saw that. Mike, just grab the next computer.
It's open now. Oh, flash.
Today,
Oh, really? No.
Linda,
Mhm.
I think given that you have
We do have a
the quorum in
we
the
can start.
room, I think we can start and you
Yeah,
can
I'll
jump
just
in.
catch in whenever I
Yeah.
can. You can hear me.
So is the recording begun?
Yes.
All right, so you're able to open the meeting anytime you'd like, Chairman.
Good morning, all. Why don't we
Do a roll call, please.
begin our July 15th LBC meeting. Can I please get a motion to approve our minutes of our June 17th meeting?
Before we do that, Chairman, I think we need to do a roll call to assert, get on the record who's here in the room.
Correct.
Linda, can you walk through the roll?
Yeah, Peter McDevitt,
Here.
Craig Leggett,
Here.
Brad McGowan,
Here.
Jack Diamond,
Here.
Mike Wild,
Here,
Travis Whitehead,
Here.
and Jim.
Well, I'm not on the board, but yes, I'm here.
What about Gene Marino?
Gene is not.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's out on medical.
All right,
What-
so we have
We have a quorum.
six board members. We have a quorum, 5 of which are in the room.
Four of which.
5 of which
Five.
are in the room.
Good morning one more time. Can I then get a motion to approve the minutes of our June 17th, 2021 meeting, please?
make the motion. Second.
Supervisor McGowan, second by Supervisor Wild. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you very much. Lisa Daly, a review and approval of our June 2021 financial statements. Can you help us, please?
Absolutely. Good morning.
Morning.
June was a fairly uneventful month for the LDC. You can see from the statement of financial position that we are still carrying the accounts payable to the EDC. And again, that's pending contract completion. And then that payable will be paid. In addition to that, we have a receivable from Warren County. Again, that's pending contract renewals, and those will wipe each other out basically. We remain in a good cash position. We did make the decision when the CD came up for renewal, not to renew it. because we have some projects in the pipeline, and I'm sure Jim will expand on that a little bit more as he goes into his narrative. So that is now in the TD Bank loan account. It's not a separate CD investment. The year to date, so we're halfway through our budget year, and you can see that our income is spot on, very little fluctuation in that. The bank interest, obviously, or I'm sorry, the loan interest is significantly more than it was at the 6-month point last year, and that was because of COVID, obviously. And I'm sure Linda will review that, or Jim, when we get to the loan portfolio status, but the majority of our loan holders are making full loan payments. I've resumed that. As for expenses, we didn't have any expenses in June, so no checks were written, hence the blank check register report. And let's see. I don't see anything else unusual. Does anyone have any questions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. At towns, we do a modified accrual method for our accounting. Have you always used the full accrual for the LDC? Or do you know? You're pretty new at this, but is that the way it's come through?
I'm sorry, what's that? I didn't hear the question.
Yeah, the question is about accrual method.
Yes,
Of accounting that
they've always used the accrual method, yes.
boys have.
Mhm.
I think he's specifically asking about the partial versus full accrual method. I'm not sure I understand the difference myself, but does that make sense to you, Lisa?
Well, the financial statements are always presented in the accrual method, and that's very common among not-for-profits.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Craig. Any other questions on any other board member? Seeing none, can I then get a motion to approve the financial statements as presented by Ms. Daly, please?
So move.
So Mr. Leggett, seconded by Supervisor McGowan. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Yes.
You can do that since they're in the
Okay.
room.
And can I have a roll call, please? Peter McDevitt,
Yes.
Craig Leggett,
Yes.
Brad McGowan,
Yes.
Jack Diamond,
Yes.
and Mike Wild.
Yes.
Okay, all in favor.
We'll turn it over now to Jim, as far as his report.
Thank you. Thank you. I want to first bring everyone's attention to the loan spreadsheet, which was a part of your package. We continue to work to resolve any open issues with any of the longstanding loan holders. In fact, there is a matter of potential resolution on Superior Cantina that I would like to suggest we speak in executive session about. But I'm encouraged at the potential of resolving one of our longstanding loans. As Lisa said, we've resumed full payments with the balance of the portfolio that is not in receivership. And this is an encouraging sign, not only for those individual loan holders, but also for the economy at large. Even a few months ago, there was some reticence by some about whether or not they would have the cash flow to be able to do that. And now we're able to see that they are indeed able to do that. In terms of the outstanding loan portfolio, we continue to work with Attorney Twilliger and our staff to try to bring to resolution the handful of longstanding outstanding loans. Those that remain are in some form of receivership or court claim. And if there's any questions on that, I'm happy to address them. I know Attorney Twilliger is here as well. I'd be happy to do that before we move on to any of the other points. Okay, so let me also share a few other items that are of interest to all of us. The first is there was some discussion, I believe it was informal, about using the LDC as a potential source for matching funds for a variety of grants. No specific grant proposal was provided to our office for your evaluation. If we'd had it, we certainly would have provided it. I do want to remind the board that there is an outstanding agreement between the LDC and the EDC to jointly fund a housing study, which has existed for more than a year. And so this is not without precedent that the LDC would be a source of funds to do things beyond the loan portfolio. However, I think on a case-by-case basis, you should evaluate any potential use of those funds to make sure it's consistent with the mission and the will of the board. At the moment, I have nothing to offer you, but I think it is certainly a potential that we will have proposals made to the LDC for potential source of matching funds. And in terms of our contract status, I have to take some responsibility here. I'm frustrated by the fact that we do not have a contract resolution for you at this point, or at least a set of comprehensive comments that have been reviewed with County Attorney Twilliger. The rationale for that is the attorney that we've hired, Mark McCarthy, in full disclosure, did share with Chairman McDevitt and I that he was going to be on leave for some part of July, and indeed returned last week. I think it's also important to take into perspective what we've asked our attorney to do. We specifically sought an attorney who was independent and potentially geographically independent, and who had no vested interest in Warren County. We got that. We also told that attorney that we would like them to work on a not to exceed $5,000 basis, which I think was prudent. But I also think that what that means is that we are probably not the biggest thing on his pile. I've called a number of times this week to try to come to closure. I know that those comments have been consolidated by him. I do not believe that there's been closure with County Attorney Twilliger on the language around liability and around contract term and termination, which were the three areas that were raised in prior conversation. Just spoke with Attorney Twilliger, and he certainly indicated his willingness to engage as quickly as Attorney McCarthy is available. I believe that this can still be resolved quickly. And when we do have those, we will bring them to first the governance committee for review and then to the full board. Questions about either of those points? Okay, I'd like to shift gears now to a hopefully more encouraging posture. There was discussion earlier about the fact that we did not renew the CD at 0.25% interest, which would have probably turned into something like $20 to $22 based on the term and the funds. And I want to explain the rationale for that. In the past 6 months, the EDC has been engaged by 3 entities that are aggressively exploring the potential of relocating some or all of their operations here. That's a very encouraging sign. I'm always reticent to share this publicly and raise expectations because most of these things do not come to fruition. You know that as well as I do. You've been around for a long time. But I believe that it is likely that at least one out of these 3 could very well materialize in the next few months. And if so, all of them have indicated a desire to make application to the LDC and or the IDA for support. Not knowing what they would be asking for, I wanted to ensure that we had available funds that would allow us the maximum flexibility to be able to match any potential application. I also was concerned that if we tied up the funds in a CD, the cost of pulling those funds before the end of the term would have been hundreds of dollars. And so I made the recommendation to the Banking Review Committee, and they supported the idea that for payment of $20 versus the cost of potentially many hundreds of dollars, it made sense to keep the cash on hand. I'm hopeful that we will be able to put some or all of those funds to work between now and the end of the year in the interest of a fairly Some are modest and some are what I would consider to be medium-sized manufacturing operation, which is looking to potentially locate here. I also think this is a really important indication of the economy recovering. You know as well as I do that in calendar year 2020, we did not receive or we did not actually act on any loans. So the idea that 3 fairly healthy organizations would come looking to potentially not only locate here, but to seek LDC assistance is a big change. There are also modest organizations that I think are waiting for us to put our hand up and say we're back and open for business. I don't know that definitively, but I can just sense it from the community that we engage in. There are small businesses that are looking to expand. If you look, for instance, at the city was recently able to help a handful of businesses expand their operations in downtown Glens Falls. So I believe that there's demand at both the small and what I would consider to be the medium size. And when I talk about small, I'm talking about loans that might be in the neighborhood of $10,000 to $25,000. And I talk about medium being in the area of 50 to maybe even as much as $100,000 or $200,000. I think we have activity in both camps. That's very encouraging. The last thing I want to share with you is the fact that we as the EDC are involved in a number of ventures that could potentially include novel interactions with the LDC and other economic incentive groups in the area. These 2 areas revolve around broadband and around housing. The reason these are important is when we recently did the study about professional relocation with Roost, and I think some of you saw that study that came out earlier this year. We asked people who were familiar with the Adirondacks and who visited here frequently, how many of them were considering coming here and moving here. And if they were, what were the criteria that they were baking that decision on? Within 10 days of putting that survey out, we had nearly 10,000 responses, which is a remarkable response rate. There was nothing in it for people to respond to this 5-page survey. We didn't offer them any incentive, but they told us a lot. Of those almost 10,000, nearly 15% said they're in the process of moving here now. Another 10% said that they're looking to see whether or not their remote job would allow them to move here. Would it stay remote? Just on that 10,000 alone, not as a extrapolation against the overall population. If we just look at that as the entire population of potential people that would move here, that's nearly 2,500 people who've expressed that they're in some form of process of moving here. The number 1 and number 2 feature that they were determining whether or not they would do that was based on whether or not they could find a home for under $350,000. That was number 1. And number 2 was whether or not they would have a viable broadband connection. The reason those things are important is because this is a generational opportunity for us and the entire North Country. We have been facing population loss for a generation, slow migration out. We now have an opportunity to capitalize on a desire to move here, to bring human capital, talent, entrepreneurship, small business, all kinds of things. Now, this is not simply Warren County, and it's important to understand that I can't tell you how many of those people are specific to Warren County. They did not identify which county they would potentially be locating in. But even if we were to only take a fraction of those, that suggests that between 500, maybe as many as 1,000 households are looking to come here. That's validated by what we see in our housing market. In the first quarter of this year, the Glens Falls metropolitan area was identified as the 9th greatest increase in year-over-year median home price in the country. So not only do we have indication from people that they want to relocate here, but our housing market is clearly demonstrating that it is under demand. The reason I tell you all of this is that I don't have this fully laid out, but it is possible that as we look at both of these factors, broadband and housing, that there may be things that the LDC would need to get involved in to assist in this transition. For instance, if there are home developers that are sitting on the fence about whether or not they would put a mixed-use housing development to work, I've sat down with Warren Washington County Chairman of the IDA, Dave O'Brien, to say, how would we approach them together to make sure that we're doing all we can to assist them in the process of putting additional mixed-use housing available. And he has demonstrated his full support for that. There may be some of these entities that are looking for funds specific to things like material costs. I've been told by many developers that they are developing homes, particularly high-end homes, specifically because those buyers can absorb material cost increases and contract complexes cannot. If we want to get that limited amount of housing capacity pointed at the things that would be available to people that have expressed an interest in coming here, we may need to help them overcome the short-term things like material costs or supply chain delays. We've talked about this before. None of them have materialized with a loan yet, but I can imagine that we might be evaluating whether we would expand our criteria to include those things in the next 6 months. I also believe as we expand broadband and there's fiber to the home throughout the county, we've received the initial report from ECC, which is still in draft, and we will share with the county as soon as it's complete. But in that, we've discovered that Warren County actually has fiber and coaxial cable to the vast majority of the hamlets and the vast majority of the addresses, somewhere between 75 and 85% of the homes, and that's what we're trying to center on in the finalization of this report, already have high-speed coaxial or fiber available to them. However, less than 60% of those households are taking advantage of it. There's two potential issues here. One is that they simply can't afford the service.
Amen.
The other could be that they could afford the service, but they can't afford the cost of the connection to their home. Most carriers will only provide a connection somewhere between 50 and 100 feet. If you live 1,000 feet from wherever that passage is, the cost can be extensive in order to bring it to your home. What I'd like to do, and what we're doing at the EDC, is to try to dig in to figure out how much of this we can actually quantify. How many of these people who have access to broadband but are not utilizing it fit into each category? But let's imagine that we find that there are 500 households in Warren County where broadband could potentially be available to them, but they don't have the ability to pay the $1,000 or $2,000 that it may cost for them to connect. I think we should at least consider whether or not the same funds that we would make available to somebody on a septic system or some other issue of public infrastructure, we might consider whether or not we would make funds available to our community there. I'm not suggesting to you that you should. I'm only suggesting to you that the data that we're uncovering is uncovering a potential need. And it's a legitimate question that the community would have about whether or not the LDC has a role to play in this. There's a lot of work that remains to be done to figure out if this is prudent, to figure out if it's appropriate, and to figure out if it is financially viable. But all of those things are opportunities for the LDC to engage in ways that would, I think, strengthen our community and would definitely support the economic wave of professional relocation that is making itself available to us. If someone can come here from New York City or from any metro area with their job in hand, and that's a 6-figure job, and the thing they need is a home and a broadband connection, think about what we would pay to have 100 factory workers who make 6 figures. What would we offer in the way of financial incentives to bring something like that here? Yet they're not asking for anything. They're just looking to make sure we have those two things. I really think we have an opportunity here to have a very cost-effective way of encouraging economic growth, not only in Glens Falls and Queensbury, but throughout the entire county. Some of the most sophisticated fiber to the home in Warren County actually exists in places like North Creek because of, in Chestertown, in Thurman, because of recent fiber deployments that were made. There's an opportunity here for us to find and bring people into those communities that we've never imagined would be a part of those communities if we can figure out a way to help. So with all that, I share only in the interest of educating you as a board that there may be unusual or certainly different opportunities in front of us than we have faced before. As the EDC partner, it is our job to go present this information to you and as completely as we can. Think about this as a preview, In subsequent meetings, I'd like to bring you the data so that you can educate yourself about it. You can ask whatever questions you'd like. And then I think before the end of the year, we're likely to be faced with questions about whether or not it's appropriate for us to engage in any of this. One thing I am certain of, there's going to be greater business activity. And I'm very hopeful that we will have additional loans to be able to present to you in the coming months. That's my report. I would like to remind everybody that we probably need to go into executive session to discuss one of the loans. Yes.
Once again, Jim, you just amazed me. You really, in my opinion, hold a very good meeting and you speak very well. I will bring up the fact that I was just at a NACO convention and I did go to the broadband. I think there was two. Supervisor Leggett, did you attended one and I attended one. We also were able to listen to our Vice President Harris and and my favorite Nancy Pelosi that all spoke on the money that has come available for broadband. The government has realized that this is a major problem, and they allotted. You can't really. Quite a few $1 billion. We just want to make sure it goes in the right direction. But they have realized that, and a lot of grant programs are going to be coming up. And this, what was nice to hear is that they're feeling our pain. They have heard us, and we're all pulling it together. One of the major costs of moving broadband, sits right down in Albany with the fees to come up the Northway that the taxpayers built years ago. And for some reason, there was a little bill that was snuck in there that, we get buco dineros per foot. I don't understand that, but it's our own state, in my opinion, and I don't mind going on the record for this, is kind of holding us up in expanding this in a more cost fashion. But you're absolutely right, too, in the fact that this is one of the other things that I heard in broadband was the cost. I mean, I fight with I don't fight, but, with Spectrum. I get my bill every month and I just cringe. And they telling me I got the highest speed, but I don't think I do. And I live right here in Queensbury. But it was also the options. What's the competition we have? We have Frontier up north, but the rest of us have to deal with Spectrum. And I'm not knocking that, but also one of the things I pulled out of the meeting was bringing in more competition and to bring in it fair, because we've listened to Frontier and the struggles that they've had and other smaller companies that have tried to help out in Luzerne. In our outstretched areas, but really, it's a thing that we all have to look into and work together. And I just wanted to say that that our federal government has realized that this is a problem going through this pandemic and not finding out that some of our kids, but really the cost effective is what's there, but can you afford it? And that's really where we might have to help the companies, but I just want to thank you. That was a great report. And, like I said, it was interesting, and I'm still trying to sort out everything that I learned over the 5 days. It was quite a jam-packed session of everything. But that was one thing I picked up, and maybe Supervisor Leggett would like to, chime in of what he learned on the day before.
It's just to affirm what Supervisor McGowan had said, that from Vice President, Secretary of Transportation, the Speaker of the House, they all really point to broadband as #1 initiative. So I can only imagine there will be programs lining up with that. And as we are more able to document what our needs are and have that ready and in hand when any funding comes through, we will be in a better position to get it and move ahead.
You raise a couple of points that I'd like to make sure that I share with you. First of all, thank you for that. But it's important to understand that at the same time, Warren County was one of a handful of counties that was recognized by the National Association of Counties as a case study in how to approach this problem. So I'd like to compliment the leadership of the entire county. When I stepped into this job a year ago, I, in my second day, came up to the county and met with Supervisor Wild, Supervisor Garrity, County Administrator Moore, to try to ascertain what were the most near-term priorities. One of the first things that they shared with us was that we needed to fully capitalize on our opportunities around broadband, and we needed to organize ourselves to be ready for the next wave of funding. So we've endeavored as the EDC to do that ever since. But I think the recognition by the leadership at the county level that you needed data and you needed to go do it before the programs became available was not only laudable, but it was being recognized now by others as a nationwide best practice. To that end, we are in the process right now of working on a multi-county grant with what's known as the NTIA. It will be a fairly modest grant, probably in the neighborhood of $20 million. But the notion of being able to work with other counties on the unserved and underserved areas collectively rather than one at a time is a really promising way of addressing this going forward, because the things that are left are small pockets in each place. They're hard to make the case, even though to that individual, it's binary. You either have it or you don't. You're either a part of the new economy or you're not. But if there's only 20 homes in, say, the area of North Creek, and on the other side, there's 20 or 30 homes in the area of Indian Lake on the Hamilton County side, it makes all the sense in the world for us to put those together so they look like 50 homes, so that a carrier is incented to develop it, and so that the money would flow as if there was no county boundary. And the recognition of that by this county and others, that that's a better way to approach the problem, is also laudable. We're happy to participate and support that effort. The last thing I would mention to you on the broadband side is that we are going to be engaging every single supervisor to ensure that what we see from the data that talks about unserved and underserved areas matches with what their knowledge of their own community is. So everyone will be hearing from the EDC in the coming weeks about that. But the most important part is to understand that this is as a fundamental part of infrastructure as water and sewer, roads and bridges, to our financial future, to a sustainable tax base. These knowledge workers can work anywhere. And if you look at the people who are moving into our community, I have a neighbor 2 doors down from me who's a teacher in New York City and has been teaching from here for the last 6 months. Their partner is a marketing executive for a company in New York City. They have been able to seamlessly continue their professional lives from Glens Falls. Now, I'm not sure the teacher can do that indefinitely, but I think that the marketing executive can. And that is an inflow of a young couple that represents more than a 6-figure income that we would never have had otherwise. And I think they're indicative of the wave of activity we have available to us if we are ready.
Go ahead, Mike.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. And it's a question and also kind of like a comment for Jim. The professional relocation, I think all of us have heard on the news, the gig economy, the fact that professionals are actually quitting their jobs because they're looking for more balance in their lives, and they feel as though they can better serve their career moving forward by being on their own. I think it's a trend that's emerging, and my sense is it's a trend that's going to be durable. It's going to stick around for a while. So how do we position ourselves to be not so much in the forefront, but at least recognizable to the major metropolitan areas that this is a wonderful place and that we do have opportunities for this type of relocation? And I think it's important for us to be in front of that. So, you know, Jim, maybe it's for you, maybe it's for the rest of the board, or maybe it's for the county board to try to figure it out. But I think that's something that we should be moving forward on to get in front of the game.
I know that we will provide you with as much data as we possibly can, not only on the broadband side, but on the housing side, so that you're armed with information to make good decisions. And I think this, as you say, is going to be probably going to be a recurring theme in the next few years here of any part of municipal life. So our goal is to raise the acumen and the level of knowledge so that everyone knows the current situation. To that end, for instance, the EDC is sponsoring a national economist, real estate economist in August to come help us understand how the data that we have in our community compares with others, and to help us understand what practices may allow us to best capitalize on the opportunities that we have. That should start a conversation, but we're also going to share all the data we have. We've been compiling everything we know about costs, cost increases, demand, all the various housing types across the spectrum, including things like townhomes, condominiums, apartments, including everything that's in the pipeline in all the various communities, so that everyone can be armed with as much information as possible. And I'm hopeful that we should think of this as another wave of economic activity to go along with the traditional wave that we have of looking to relocate businesses and operations that employ lots of people. Because to the extent that we can bring 100 of these people here, it's as if we moved a factory. And honestly, from a cost standpoint, it's more cost effective. They don't ask for any tax benefits typically. They're simply looking for the tools they need.
So if, go ahead, Brent.
And one more thing, you brought that up. The most important thing that I heard right at the end of my meeting was exactly what we're doing. The study is the most important, and whatever information that we gather from our study, if we can make sure that, you know, the government can get it too, just not the benefit that it could help us, but they said, if, you know, the first and the best place to start anywhere was doing a study. So we all have the best knowledge. So we started that a year ago, and Jim, you brought that up, and I appreciate the, you know, the EDC taking that on in a joint effort with the LDC. So thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Mike.
Just to follow up, Jim, I agree with the study's nice, but we're talking about is individuals that are making decisions to move here. So what are the key factors, right? We know the price of the home, we know the broadband, but there's other things that this community offers.
Well, and we gave them a choice of many facets, and they weighed in on those. So I don't think it's that the other things are not important. I think they just simply said that the two that are deal breakers, they stopped looking if they can't find a home and if they don't believe they're going to be served by broadband. But there are other factors that matter to them. Placemaking matters to them. They need access to healthcare. They're obviously looking for good schools. They're clearly looking for amenities like shopping, and they specifically mentioned things like shared workspaces, brew pubs, coffee houses, cultural, organizations. One interesting facet that fully surprised me was they are looking specifically for places that they can serve. One of the things that's missing for many people who are looking to relocate is a sense of community. They want to know if they can plug into whatever community that they're moving to and be a valued member. I did not expect that. So one of the things they're evaluating once they figure out if there's a house and a broadband connection is whether or not there's a kind of way for them. Maybe they're involved in, art-related activities, or there are art-related organizations they can belong to. Is there a place for them in public service? All of this is encouraging to me, but it was pretty surprising. What we're going to do is to initiate a second wave of that survey in conjunction with Roost. We're drafting it now to try to both update the information and go deeper on all of those things and how we can meet them. But I also want to share with you the fact that we produce this information for you and for the rest of the residents of Warren County. It's to raise the awareness and to allow people to be armed with information to make the best decisions they can. So we don't do this for ourselves. We're not doing this primarily for people we don't know. We're doing it for you, every other elected official, and every resident of Warren County. We're going to make it available first to you as the elected officials, and then to the people, to make sure that everybody has access to it. They'll have plenty of opinions about it, but we want to get it to them no matter what.
Thank you.
So Brad, Speaker Pelosi wanted to deliver us some significant dollars. It would be okay. We would take it.
She, and it is, this is all bipartisan too.
It is. It
It is
absolutely
all bipartisan.
Absolutely. Any other board members have any comments? Any other buddy that's listening, any comments or observations? Seeing none,
We have to go to executive session.
Executive.
that being said, can I get a motion to go into executive session? Mr. McGowan, seconded by Mayor, former Mayor of Glens Falls, Jack Diamond. All those in favor?
All right.
You're in the executive
Okay,
session.
so we need to make sure that Linda confirms with us that we are there before we engage.
You relax.
So Jim, once we get the data and find out where the gaps are, we'll fill some gaps, but are we gonna, is the sense of doing some marketing to, maybe through ACE with the Association of Creative Economy or something like that, one of these groups
Yeah, we're
to push the awareness?
looking at a lot of places, but one of the things that's interesting is that right now, 1 out of 10 visitors to the EDC social media and website is from New York City. So we're already having some success in creating a direct connection to people who are looking at this area. And I think we can communicate directly with some, but we clearly would like to partner as much as we can. Probably with groups like the Capital District, which we're a part of. They have a lot of money that they're putting into their effort to attract millennials. I'd love to co-op.
Little rust.
So now we just have a vote on the resolution.
We are out of executive session. Basically,
Do we have a resolution?
I was looking for maybe Robert to kind of give us the language in terms of, Superior Cantana.
Well, we had discussed some possible really be counter offers that I could make back to the attorneys at Superior Cantina. If you'd like me to do that, I'm happy to do that. I mean, the counter offer would be accepting a one-time $20,000 payment as full payment of all of it, and that would be the end of it, or accepting the $25,000 and then working out a payment schedule of some kind to pay back that $25,000 to the LDC. And again, that could be any number of ways to do it. Maybe I would make the first offer of an initial payment of $20,000 since they seem inclined to be able to pay $20,000 and then a subsequent payment of $5,000.
Robert, so I was looking for a motion to accept a one-time payment of $20,000, just the verbiage, the wording on that. Maybe it's as simple as we accept a one-time payment of
Okay,
$20,000.
then it could be just that then. Would the LDC like to accept a one-time payment of $20,000 as resolution of that
Good.
loan?
Thank you. Supervisor McGowan,
I'll make that motion of taking a one-time payment of $20,000 so we can move forward from the
thank you.
cantina.
Thank you, Brad. Can I have a second, please? Supervisor Wild to the second. All those in favor?
We got to do a roll call on it.
Okay.
Yeah, we
roll
need
call.
to do a roll call, right? Craig Leggett,
Aye.
Peter McDevitt.
Aye.
Jack Diamond,
Yes.
Brad McGowan,
Yes.
Mike Wild.
Yes.
Okay, pass.
We're all done then.
Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn, please. Wild and McGowan. All those in favor?
All right.
Thank you.
So,
So
Yeah.